is yours, mine. There is nothing that I'd rather have than for you to put your hand upon my forehead. Just keep it there. Don't take it away. Don't tell me that even though you may not like all the things I do, but say that you love my soul and remember me. Oh,
Hold me close. Put your arms around my neck as we drift out into the darkness.
you're so thin. It's only a movie. It's only a movie. When I look into a stranger's eyes. When I look into a stranger's eyes. Oh, you're sailing away. And you're lying on this beach, sleeping. And a tiger's watching you from the edge of the jungle.
I'm sorry I let you down, he wrote. I really tried my hardest, but it was too soon after my heart attack. The planetary alignments were wrong. The time taken for light to cross the galaxy. For some days before I went to Galanish, I had images haunting me. I saw myself trying too hard with alluring. And then a sudden storm, heavy, turbulent, overcast, thunder, and as I lured, a flash of light striking me down. What if I succeeded with my crystal and caused my own death at the very moment when you were thinking of me? A recurring dream.
Evil, come on, let go. Your time on earth is over. It's time to rest. I'm talking to your soul. Did you ever think it'd be like this?
But the hospital was weirder than anything I could have imagined. Whitehead kept calling his Russian mistress his angel of death. She was wrapped like a black leech around his heart. She interpreted for him, mimed his emotions. She watched him and she waited for the moment to sink her beak into his neck.
I had expected this to be the beginning of the story, but it very nearly became the end of the story. Either way, it's even more urgent now.
Whitehead likes to operate in mysterious ways. So he asked me to drive up to a place called Rutland Water.
Are you prepared to go on a strange journey?
Yes.
Life, after all, is the strangest of journeys.
So I turned up and I arrived at the jetty and there was no one there. And then eventually this boat turned up. I was told that if I got on the boat I would be taken to Whitehead, which I agreed to do rather reluctantly because I don't like water at the best of times. So we had to go across this bloody lake, and there was kind of a big house in secluded grounds which turned out to be a restaurant, very expensive, very exclusive restaurant. And there in the corner of the dining room was Mr. Peter Whitehead, the sort of silver-haired gent. And he talked mainly about himself. He told stories about how he'd been a filmmaker, how he'd done this, how he'd done that, and I kept on thinking, it's like there are gaps, you know, I mean, how do you get from filmmaking to falconry? How do you get from falconry to writing novels? I just thought, you know. But anyway, I was quite intrigued, and he tells a tale. Does our Pete?
This man is not just a sculptor, he's also a shaman, he's a magician. And considering what's happened to me now, frankly, I mean, I was at death's door a few days ago. I've been called, I've reached the door and been called.
Something happened outside. There was a terrific flash, I mean, huge flash, and this enormous crash. And it completely silenced the dining room. And I looked across at Whitehead, and he was sitting there kind of smiling enigmatically to himself, while the rest of the kind of diners and the staff were in a state of some consternation. It was rather like a road accident, you know, everyone goggling out of the window. And there was this one man looking in the other direction, kind of smiling secretively to himself, as though he knew exactly what had gone on outside and had probably arranged it.
The original plan, considering I collect certain kinds of things, was to have him make a very sacred box, kind of sarcophagus, if you like, or a tomb, or a mummy, and in it was going to be a mummified bird, probably a falcon, because I happen to consider the falcon to be my myth.
He decided that because I had made films when I was younger, which set us as parallel, that I should be the man to revive his career by making the film biography of Peter Whitehead. And the carrot that was held out was that he suggested that there were untold secrets that would be revealed. You know, weird showbiz liaisons, connections to the secret state, you know, hints of MI6, a whole kind of dealings with the black economy, drug culture, high society, all that sort of stuff. And that there would be some sizzling footage which would be revealed for the first time. So I thought, well, yeah, I was sufficiently intrigued to say yes.
He used to live, or was supposed to live, there in the Hebrides somewhere, making things like this. It must be there somewhere, or something strange has happened.
I think the other thing, the clinching thing, was that very early on, Whitehead confided that she looked like his daughter. And then I realized that was probably the thing that made the choice right.
It began about 6 months before Peter Whitehead's most convincing heart attack. I took on Lacroix as a researcher, invited her to log the endless tapes of Whitehead's once fabulous career. I was happy to install her in my flat with a decent supply of vegetarian chaff, a fridge full of Guinness, and a TV monitor, while I took myself off to Suffolk to hack out a novel. I admired her work as a photographer and had bought a few of her prints. She said later that she found Whitehead's voice hypnotic and insinuating, like being stroked along the spine by a feather dipped in formaldehyde.
It's all to do with Salome, the daughter. That is my myth. Salome represented the ultimate, the end of the female mystery. She is the erotic, she is the sacred. She is the sacred vision. You see, Oedipus is the daughter. Oedipus is the only son. He, in fact, is feminized. Tiresias was blinded by Hera and became a woman. He becomes a celebrated harlot for 7 years. In other words, he is initiated into the mysteries of the goddess, and that is what his sign represents. What I believe is when I take photographs of a woman, I do so as a woman. What the photographer has to take is what is hidden and occulted and reveal it, but in doing so, he steals the soul. You reduce them to matter. You steal the moment of time and steal everything. You make them sacred, but you sacrifice them.
Did you ever think it'd be like this?
There was something about Lacroix. She was a survivor. She could work her way back through all the evidence I could give her, establishing a Whitehead biography that would hold together. alleged affairs with Mick and Bianca Jagger, with Nathalie Delon, Nico, the sculptors Penny Slinger and Nicky de Saint-Phal, a fraught liaison with Cathy Acker that acted, some said, as the inspiration for Acker's venomous essay, Hannibal Lecter, My Father. A projected biography of Irish novelist Francis Stewart, occult surrealist connections with David Gascoigne and the Paris Circle, clubman adventures in the Middle East, brokering covert deals that married state-of-the-art ordnance with medieval instruments of torture, a fateful interview with Bobby Kennedy hours before his assassination, underground films funded by Howard Marks, and porno films with Harrison Marks, falconry, egg thefts, Egyptology, the secret state. Whitehead out-archered Archer. He was the spook, the working-class boy who fucks the system from the inside. Whitehead, true to form, tried to involve Lacroix in some Hebridean nonsense, but I put her straight. I sent her to Ireland, to County Wicklow, with the task of uncovering the mysteries of Whitehead's past. She will question Francis Stewart, but it's too late. The old man has come to terms with his demons, internal exile. That's right is his answer to every question. Was Whitehead in Berlin? Did he arrange drug runs from Colombia? Did he secretly record a Paris drinking session with Samuel Beckett? Did he ship paedophile movies into Belfast? Was he a double agent? A double man? That's right. The only truth is a car on a wet road, a drowned landscape. Lacroix relies on playback. There is no reality until she has photographed it. Nothing can be understood until it becomes an image, until it's manipulated, pinned to a wall, meditated upon.
Yes, that's right. Soft. Yeah.
She moves among dead men, the arthritic creak of a machine cranking out anecdotes, revising crimes, reworking history. They can't remember. They don't want to know. Too much darkness. David Gascoigne recalling Dr. Bluth, the sinister Notting Hill quack who shot up the demi-monde with a lethal mixture of oxblood and methadone. City nights, bug-eyed visionaries on the trot.
Life is so much drift. I mean, if you like, you can pretend everything has been carefully planned out, or if somebody writes a biography, they can take that point of view, but that's not so, looking back. You drift. I know it's important what currents you drift on. It's not haphazard exactly, but it's so much drift in life, I think. That's right.
Then the letters began. Every morning a fresh package from Whitehead, wondering why I hadn't left for Scotland. I couldn't stay in the flat. I needed to be on the move. I felt as if Whitehead was following me, whispering invitations to afternoon hotels, examining my wrists for rope burns, junk tracks. I prefer my own images, myself as primary suspect.
I arranged for Lacroix to meet Stuart home in Fat Boy's Diner, a well-advertised front for industrial espionage. Home was a few rashers short of a sandwich, but the best rumour-monger in town. He claimed to have inside information, a plum job in the banking system, knew nothing about economics, so he could be right.
Never come
strange dream the other night about walking across a quadrangle, some sort of square, some kind of open space inside some buildings. And I knew somebody was following me. And I knew that I wasn't to look round and look at him, but finally I did look round and looked at him, and at that instant that I turned round and looked at him, I didn't even have time to see him. He suddenly flung himself at me, absolutely, and hit me, absolutely like that. And I woke up, and I straight away knew I had to go back in to be asleep again somehow, I don't know, to do it again, or to see what it was, or to escape even from being awake. And he was still there. And then I looked round, and just again at that moment, he flung himself at me with incredible force. And I woke up, and it happened 3 times.
He's Peter Whitehead. He's meant to be a spook, and the whole thing, it goes back a long way. Parts of the city, between different parts of the city, it's really, really...
Lacroix doesn't belong here. The city has its own microclimate. Nobody looks at the sky. Legs, shoes, cracks in the pavement, bandaged buildings, stunning panoramas from the towers of locked churches, invitations to suicide. Jump before you're pushed or die by drowning.
A diet of human mushrooms.
What is really going on in ancient Egypt, or maybe going on in ancient Egypt is now going on now. It's actually about vertical time. It's about hypertext. It's about accessing verticality rather than linear narration.
Normans were actually Vikings, and they lived on a diet of human blood and psychedelic mushrooms. The buildings might look boarded up, but there's a lot of kind of occult rituals going on. I mean, absolutely horrendous ritual child slaughters. As you know, the royal family aren't actually Christians, they're pagans. And Whitehead's fronting, he's kind of doing small stuff in the publishing industry, but the whole of the British publishing industry is a front for the spook operations. Now, they've already killed off a few people, but I'm really frightened, you know. It's the 400th anniversary in 1997, which is when they're going to re-emerge just prior to the millennium and try and impose alchemical absolutism on the country. I mean, they don't just want to do this in England, they want to move out across the entire world.
This is Alphaville. For fuck's sake, this is Alphaville. I'm still living in Alphaville.
Some might say it's Zeroville.
Would that mean it's Alphaville?
I mean, what I hear he's moving into is TV, and, you know, the symbolic importance of the city is incredible. Now, what I think he's going to do is take a lot of film around the city, then cut it up into a different order to entice people to visit the city in the way he's reordered the city, which is a form of alchemical processing. Now, I have this map which shows the size of Wren's churches. Now, underneath every Wren's church, there was a ritual human sacrifice made, the foundations were laid. So we have the red dots representing the successfully accomplished sacrifices.
Olga was one of those strange points of connection between Whitehead and myself. I'd come across her in Leningrad, a student interpreter eager to make contact with a British filmmaker. Sometimes she boasted of being a lieutenant in the KGB. Equally often she would vigorously deny it. She seemed to be acting out the strangest of assignments, infiltrating the culture by sleeping with anybody noted in some name-dropping psychedelic autobiography. At the time of his heart attack, Whitehead had her banged up in an obscure Battersea tower block, which was where I sent Lacroix to dig out a story I'd never been able to bring into focus.
What I'd like to do, if we can find the right girl, which I think would be really a great adventure, the girl with whom we have no relationship. We rent
That'd
a
be
model.
difficult.
Before the session. What we have is we have a dozen condoms at the beginning on the wall, you see, and we see how, you know, he can spend 24 hours with her and I can spend 24 hours. No, seriously, joking. We get the perfect model that we both like and think we can take photographs of, and we get a space with a certain number of objects, like your black velvet, and a few things and everything, and you take X images, a set of images which you consider, and then I do it. And
Just
compare
mix them
them.
up, see what...
Actually, as you speak about it, my heart starts jumping up even now. I think there is a very strange connection. It's a psychological connection, entirely in your mind. But it's to do with the fact that Peter and I are like mirror images of each other.
Two texts, intertextuality, the one story haunting the other. In a word, incest. And it is the incestuous relationship between the father and the daughter, which is my mythology. Not because I look for daughters, but I look for my own daughter, my own soul. And lo, in the night, my soul, my daughter, cry, clutching heaven by the hems, and lo, Christ walking on the water, but not of Gennesaret, but Thames.
We seem sometimes opposite to each other, but really it's different expressions of the same thing. And essentially our spirit and our character is they are so similar. I even used singular, you see, it's like one thing. And therefore most of the things that happen to us, they happen synchronistically.
But I have some incredible film with Mia in the studio with birds, with some owls and some ravens, live.
Wow.
They're so erotic. Amazing stuff. And when I shot this was in late 60s. I took it to the laboratory, you see, in Reeds. You know, how the guys, Pete Whitehead, you know, what is it this time, Pete? You know, pull up, you're cool tonight, let's all make love in London, you know. I said, listen, I've got some really, I want you to keep an eye on it. I don't want anyone to see this. You see? He said, yeah, don't worry, no, it's really interesting. I said, you know, you remember Mia? I shot, yeah, just a private, you know. It was all shot on 16. So he said, yeah, no problem. Anyway, went back the next day, wouldn't talk to me, never talked to me again.
What?
He said, sick. I won't talk to you again.
Sick, man.
Take it away. Fuck off. It was just a fucking owl. I did it physically. I copulated with falcons. I trained them to copulate with me. I did it through artificial inseminations. The females would present themselves to me. The males would copulate. I built a special hat. I went to the point where I was actually totally living out the ancient Egyptian mythology. My falcon center, as far as I'm concerned, was the Temple of Hathor.
But I mean, didn't you have any personal relation during that time?
Yes.
I mean, it sounds...
I was in love with those falcons, and they were in love with me. It was the most wonderful possible experience.
I mean, with a woman.
Yeah.
I mean, it must be impossible to have a relationship. I mean, this is my personal reflection.
You mean no woman has ever had the relationship with me that I've had with my falcons? That's probably very true.
Maybe it's true.
Maybe it's true. But I don't regret that for a minute.
Sail ho, heave ho, come on, let go. Your time on earth is over.
A fireball was reported off the northeast coast of Lewis, in perfect alignment with the ceremonies Whitehead had been enacting at the stone circle of Callanish. Land, sea and air search fails to solve blast riddle. US boffins probe riddle of Ness sky blast. Strange times. A helicopter of top brass military and civilian counter-terror specialists from Northern Ireland had flown into the hillside. Whitehead claimed personal responsibility for these things. He was attempting the great work, barbecuing pigeons, incubating eggs, bringing down the light. He was an occultist. His explanation of the world was magical. Whatever happened could be revised on the instant to fit the pattern of his will. Car crashes, the death of the great Gaelic poet Sorley MacLean, thunderstorms, suicided animals, the theft of a holy relic, a whalebone box, from the ancient church of Rodel on the Isle of Harris.
He wrote to me, trying to convince me that Olga was responsible for his heart attack. She was totally hung up on the soul leaving the body syndrome. If she wasn't careful, she was going to fuck me to death. 13 orgasms that night, and worsening attacks. 5:30 Saturday morning, the climax, at the precise moment of the helical rising of Sirius, symbolizing the birth of Horus. Agony, release. I died. I thought I was running away from a dying man, but he was on the island all the time. He could shapeshift. He could manifest himself wherever he could persuade anyone to dream about him. I was searching for a box that was already in his possession. Whitehead was Nosferatu, a vampire. If I did not escape, I would be initiated, pressed into the coven, passed from hand to hand, like a 2,000-year-old falcon. I would be cut off forever. Like Olga, I would be inside the box. The box was the energy source.
Well, I don't know at this moment whether I leave it closed and prefer to imagine what's in the box, or whether we open it and see what's really in the box. I haven't decided yet.
While he was at the stone circle, attempting to summon the falcon, I broke into the studio, picked up the box, it was incredibly heavy, and got away.
Lacroix hasn't been in contact for weeks. She needed a break from Whitehead, took off north with her camera. I went back to the flat. No trace of her. A pile of unopened letters behind the door. The Hebridean postmark. Whitehead couldn't let her go.
Wiping the tape, drifting, washing it away. The whole thing is completely unreal. I'm finished with Whitehead, his voice coming back at me, echoing inside the bathroom, turning the walls to bone. I'm worried, he wrote. You have stolen my story. I am scared I'll die before I can finish. You must meet me one last time. And then I knew there was no escape. I didn't possess the box possessed me. I couldn't join him in the Shiraz. I was there already. The box was the hotel, and I was inside it.
Lacroix wasn't answering the phone. I wanted to tell her about Whitehead. We needed to start again, go back to the beginning. I'd got it all wrong. The most important image was the terrified child. That was the moment that defined his entire career. The moment when he stalked the school corridors at night, alone, cold, making keys to every door, fondling the other boys' possessions, brushing his hair with a stolen tortoiseshell hairbrush.
Are you trying to suggest an alternative back? Hello? Oh yes, hi. Watching the television as usual. If we can't do it by making a documentary, then we don't make a documentary. I know it'll cost no money. If you can't get me the money, I'll get some money from somewhere else. Half of one and the other half of the other one.
So that's why I think it's... Falcon is the only bird, the only creature in the world that hovers, then kills, of course, but let's just say it hovers. And in fact, as a child, I remember being fascinated by it because it was flying so fast, but it was going nowhere. So for a moment, it was outside of time, because it was flying forwards, backwards, but going nowhere. And then suddenly, it enters reality, drops, and murders.
Pretty. If you want to be back in college, to effectively increase crime and increase narcotics. Problems of water pollution. All of these, the problems of traffic congestion. The cleaning out of the party you care.
And I suspect having handed over the strongest economy in Europe.
Initiation by images, the longest night of my life. Now I understood everything I didn't want to know, all the crimes, the confessions, all the plots, fakes, transformations. Television was a black window, a window filled with dark water. I was choking. Untouched, unable to move. He was assaulting me with memories, forcing me to share his guilt, asserting his paternity.
And everyone was saying, oh my God, and there was another man lying on.
It's about the inner birth of the falcon. It's about the mummified falcon. But the mummified falcon has to be given, rebirthed spiritually. We have to be reborn spiritually.
Right down.
Мне выклевал ворог, слетая на поле ногое.
I'd been hearing the whispers for weeks. The legendary herb smuggler, Howard Marks, Whitehead's oldest ally, was making a rare appearance in Camden Town. It was like Brian Jones coming back from the dead. After the Shiraz, I was perfectly qualified to meet him. I was dead myself, numb, without feelings, a sleepwalker.
I couldn't face the compendium gig. A curtain call for the re-forgotten. Howard Marks and Peter Whitehead. A kippered Bill Wyman retread, cozying up to his partner in crime. A duff actor, morphing between narcissism and melancholy, between a debauched Anthony Hopkins and a demented Malcolm McDowell.
Max came back from the weekend and took Robin and a girlfriend from school, they're 14, both of them, to our local town in Kettering. They're supposed to be a minimum of 18. You see, and Max drifted off with the two girls. Apparently there was a complete striptease. Complete erotic. It made sort of Raymond's Review Bar look like a crazy horse. But totally naked, erections, sodomy, everything. Max said she just could not believe it. In Kettering.
Howard was my last hope. Could Whitehead really be my father? Was he implicated in these hideous conspiracies? Or was he simply a con man with a taste for sniffing gym slips? Howard had been there, a willing partner, a party to all the secrets. Whitehead always said that the only person you can trust is the one you have publicly betrayed.
Got some problem with women, but I guess we all have, don't you, in some sort of weird way, you know. But his is rather 100%, extremely trustworthy man, you know, extremely trustworthy. And also at the sort of, you know, heart-to-heart level, not merely being able to predict how he would react, you know, which is one form of trust, I guess, but actually knowing that he's not going to fuck you. Well, I can often forget the end of, you know, what I'm talking about. And what did you ask, you know, halfway through answering it? I've got that kind of dopest problem, you know. But as far as recall is concerned, no. No, I think I know myself what the truth is. You know, I can lie down and, you know, kind of work out what the truth is, you know, without too much difficulty. But, yes, there is all that skating around with everything. But that's been so much part of my life anyway, as a fugitive, you know, kind of in there, out there, and sort of different alliances with different people that, you know, it's not that different, really. To go on the street and people say, well, you know, and I've read the book. and all this, you know, like MI6, tons of dope, going out with a prostitute, you know, when I was 17. Well, with a massage parlor. Well, he wrote a book which was ghostwrited, I think, you know, badly ghostwritten, you know, totally my fault because I told him a pack of lies, you know, I can't criticize him. I was making plenty of money. No conspiracy theories. Yeah, we see him lighting up, you know, kind of, you know, so that's great, you know. Yeah.
He and Jeremy Prynne, I'm sure they go years without seeing each other. I mean, it's English life. Definitely true.
Working class background, infiltrates English society by getting into Cambridge, makes all the contacts there, kind of meets various women all the way up, vampirizes them, contacts various poets and sucks up all their energy and metaphors. They disappear into madness or prison or whatever, and he survives and moves on.
Well, how do you mean suck up their energy and they're in prison?
Well, okay. Penny Slinger was a British sculptress in the 60s who did a lot with her bondage and falcons and birds. That was what she worked with. He adapted all that and made films that used exactly the same imagery, made books, photographs that used her imagery, used her contacts and her money. And at the end of the day, she's put aside and vanishes from the story and nobody hears of her again.
I'm worried about this business with Peter Whitehead. I'm really worried about how basically you're getting so close to him. I hope you don't mind my saying this. I know him in a way, and what I know about him, he's a very powerful man, but it's a strange kind of power. If you think of him as a bird who that just spreads his wings and can fly. He presents that kind of power. It's a very sexual power. And I think that in this society in which we live, we don't feel that we have power in ourselves, being women. We feel that in order to get power, so that we can do, self-power, so we can do what we want, we need to glom on in a way to a man, to a father, because that's what we were presented with when we were children. And these men who have this kind of power, which is really very feminine. Peter's a tremendously feminine man, and he knows it. He knows his power. But I have to tell you something, there's something very black in Peter about all this. Very black in terms of very narcissistic. He thinks terribly about himself, and he knows he has this power, but he hasn't lost his sense of ego, so it's a bit dangerous, and he plays with you. I can see that. He's playing with the sexual attraction that's between the two of you, because everything is sexual. And he's drawing you in. That's what this whole search is about. He's drawing you in more and more closely as you go this way and that, and he's waiting for you. And he's going to get what he wants, and you're going to end with in a space that's black, with absolutely no power, not knowing who you are. That's what I'm worried about.
What do you mean, disappeared?
Out of the blue, you get a phone call and she can't carry on in the film. It's become difficult and she wants to do her own work, etc. So she hasn't disappeared in the sense that we don't see
people run away from projects all the time, don't they? Especially at that age.
Yeah.
It's not a police case.
Possibly. Not yet.
Ian, I don't know. You might be running with this one a little bit. I mean,
Peter wants to
run
talk
away all
about
the
having
time.
killed somebody. This is a confession that's floating, and he killed a girl, so he says, or didn't, of this sort of age. I don't know anything about it yet because I haven't heard this story. I was only told of it. But he's somebody who always has to have one more story to tell. I think probably once that story is told.
Yeah, but you can't repeat a story like that if you don't have it straight from him. I mean, that's hearsay. And, it's rampant rumor. And if it ought to be a police matter, it ought to be a police matter.
Oh, no.
It was the most painful thing I've ever known in my life. To suddenly be in love with your own daughter. Because I hadn't seen her for a while. And suddenly she emerged back, and that was it. I couldn't think about anything else at any time, wanted to be with her, and she fell in love with me too. She thought I was dead, of course, before that, and suddenly I emerged.
Yes.
And we had this sort of honeymoon together where we got to know each other again and everything. It was so powerful, you just couldn't...
And it was just at that time when she was about 11 or 12,
Yes.
wasn't it?
No, it was earlier. She was about 8, 7 or 8. She thought I was dead before that, and suddenly I emerged.
Yes.
And we had this sort of honeymoon together.
With the disappearance of Lacroix, the project was in danger of coming apart. She wasn't dead, an elected daughter, a sacrifice, any of that flim-flam. Whitehead had his dark side, but I still believed that he was capable of separating fact from fiction. That was becoming my problem. More tapes arriving every day, Super 8 outdated beaters. I couldn't listen to any more of his riffs. Displaced Child, Simon Raven military career, Cambridge, PhD in au pairs, Jean-Luc Godard, Tears on the Bus, Horus, Osiris, and a plague of fucking falcons. I'd turn the whole package over to an editor, Emma Matthews. Let her make sense of it, a purely technical exercise. As an editor, Emma likes clean cuts. When in doubt, hit the road, give them a bit of driving, a blast of music, a tunnel. Film buffs will call it an homage to my forgotten masterpiece, Chinese Boxes. Cynics will brace themselves for another dose of Stuart Home. Emma has to reinterrogate Lacroix's witnesses, evaluate the trustworthiness of their stories. Where better than millennial Greenwich, the virtual reality deadlands, meltdown, toxic siroccos, minimum content with maximum security. But Emma couldn't shake off the feeling that Lacroix was out there, that she was taking over her role, shifting inexorably from observer to performer.
This is a killing field. This is where they brought Jack the Hat to dump his body. And come the millennium, this is where they're going to knock off old Laughing Boy. I mean, Prince Charles is going to be brought up here to be ritually slaughtered. You notice how fatally the monarchy has been weakened by the death of Diana, right? They've got to make a human sacrifice. And what we've got to do is stop it. Up here, they're going to have, where the exhaust fumes come out of the Blackwall Tunnel, they're going to have the tent over which, under which everyone will be gathered, all the celebrities and that. They'll be under this tent with the exhaust fumes coming up. The exhaust fumes are meant to get out over the top of the tent, but they're actually going to build it over, so everyone's going to be poisoned. They're going to have trucks with gas going through the tunnel, poisoning everyone after they've killed Prince Charles. There'll be mass slaughter, and now they're going down. They just want to get rid of everyone. They don't want to go down on their own. They're going to take everyone with them. They control, even under the communist regime, they control Prague, which is obviously very important as an violence. You see over there, this is a killing field.
You know what it is? I don't think you've sussed it out yet. You know what it is? Chris doesn't want synchronized sound. I mean, what's this, the 5th time it's gone wrong? 5th, 6th time? He just doesn't want synchronized sound. I mean, from what I've seen, all he wants, is pure abstract image. He's just going to extract, I mean, this is the total bloody fascism. Fascism of the cameraman and the fascism of the director. He just doesn't want to hear anything that I have to say or anybody has to say, which is why every time he fucks, it's got to be. I mean, unconsciously, if nothing else, he's deliberately fucking up the sound, because in the end, you'll have no soundtrack. He takes the film off. He'll say, sorry, Iain, listen, we've got to sort out the sound. He's going to go off with Emma. They're going to throw all the sound away. They're going to just make a film of pure images. And then they'll just think, well, we'll add a few words here and there. Oh, great music, I mean, I've got this great rap. And they'll just, and they'll just put their own soundtrack on. And, I mean, let's face it, with a different soundtrack, it could be any one of 50 different movies.
Francoise is dead, She's dead. Peter Whitehead, albino. He's a psychic vampire, and he's a killer. He's killed them all.
Did you ever think it'd be like this?
And we had this sort of honeymoon together, we got to know each other. We made more sacred, but you sacrificed. She fell in love with me too. She thought I was dead.
He'll tell you that he's done all these things. And you start off by not being sure whether to believe it or not.
Say, I was the lie, see?
It has to be a fiction. There has to be somebody behind this. Somebody has made up this man's life for him.
I have never felt that anything is true. Or true? Because, as I say, I was the lie, see? There were 472 poisons. All of whom knew exactly what they were.
But there was one little bugger who was a lie. You see? It was a fiction. And I thought that Lacroix would be rather good at, in a way, treating this man's life as more of a fiction than he's treated his own life, that you actually get another level, another degree of reality or fiction.
You learn to lie, because you are a lie. You're the lie. I was the lie.
You are, I think, supposed to be telling the truth. You are, I think, supposed to be telling the truth. You are, I think, supposed to be telling the truth.
But I have never felt that anything is true. You learn to lie. You learn to lie, because you are a lie. You're the lie. I was the lie. Yeah, that's enough. Yeah, the Lord.
I think the other thing, the clinching thing, was that very early on, Whitehead confided that she looked like his daughter. And then I realized that that was probably the thing that made the choice right.
Emma had picked up whispers of the strangest story. A girl who seemed to answer Lacroix's description had been noticed on a pier under the Severn Bridge, sitting on the edge, unmoving, staring down into the water. But by the time anyone got close enough to talk to her, she'd vanished. There was nowhere to go. The beach and the stairs were visible at all times. The girl was on a loop, some kind of eternal recurrence. There were rumours of an abandoned Mercedes filled with VHS tapes, the inevitable talk of Weldon Keys. If there was one thing Emma was sure about, it was that Lacroix was not a suicide. Whitehead might be on his last life, but Lacroix had scarcely begun. Whitehead's continued existence depended on his ability to persuade someone, anyone, to keep the tape running, to listen to that 4,000-year-old voice.
Because you're the lie. I was the lie. It's all to do with Salome, the daughter. That is my myth.
Salome represented the ultimate, the end of the female mystery. She is the erotic, she is the sacred. She is the sacred vision.
So you actually feel something. You reduce them to matter. You feel the moment of time, you feel everything.
Intertextuality. The one story haunting the other. In a word, incest. And it is the incestuous relationship between the father and the daughter, which is my mythology. Not because I look for daughters, but I look for my own daughter, my own soul.
But apparently I understand.
Mirror images of each other.
Private parking tables were lowered from the ceilings.
What is the fact of fiction behind fiction? The body of a young woman was discovered on the shingle, beyond Blake.
His name is his meaning.
I know him, in a way.
Yes, that's right.
Turn and look in that
Traditional English book.
Absolutely horrendous. Richard Charles
is dead. The heart claimed the poet to be an object. The sea was dead.
But actually knowing that he's not going to
I
find it.
understand this about you. You don't mind my saying this.
It is that desire of the female to be treated as an object.
My heart starts jumping up even now.
All of your life, everything that remains to you, will be circumnavigating the meaning of that image.